U.S. has confirmed that it has conducted additional strikes on Iran-linked Houthis. And this comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading to West Asia again. And this is his fifth trip to the region since the war started. To talk more about all of this, we're now being joined by Alan Burstein, visiting assistant professor at Israel Institute, fellow Department of Political Science. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on WION, Mr. Burstein.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, the U.S. military says it carried out airstrikes on 5 Houthi missiles in Yemen after it struck Iraq and Syria over the weekend. And this is a retaliation to the attack on its Jordan base. I want to seek your assessment. How do you read these strikes by the United States of America on Iran-backed militias and groups?
So I think that the United States is really just trying to send a message to Iran saying that it is going to escalate the retaliations and escalate how it sees its role in the Middle East. Until now, the United States has been mostly on the defensive. When the war started, it sent aircraft carriers and Marines to the region and said if anyone attacks Israel, like Hezbollah or other organizations, then the U.S. would respond. Then it also sent warships to the areas of Yemen saying it is going to protect ships, and it has started to retaliate. It started several weeks ago already to launch initiated attacks against the Houthis. Now, as a result of the death of 3 U.S. service people in Jordan, it is saying we're now going to go on the offensive. So it's really trying to signal to Iran we're not just going to be defending ourselves or defending allies in the Middle East. Instead, we're willing to take it to the next level and actually start initiating attacks. I don't think they're going to attack Iran specifically. The United States does not want to war with Iran, but it's trying to signal it's not just going to sit on the defensive anymore. That's what it's trying to do, at least, with these different attacks.
Right, Mr. Burstein, just to add to that, Washington has also said that it does not want to escalate tensions in West Asia, but Iraq and Iran have warned of consequences of these strikes by the U.S. How possibly can U.S. actually now strike a balance between escalation and deterrence in an already volatile West Asia?
So usually what happens with fighting between states and non-state actors, so states and terror organizations or militias, is you have these sort of agreements between them. This is the level to which we're escalating. And we see this, for example, with Israel and Hezbollah also. We see that Hezbollah launches rockets, missiles, maybe sometimes 10, sometimes 40 a day, but they're not launching an all-out war in Israel. In turn, Israel also is striking against Hezbollah targets, but so far it's carried out over 2,000 attacks probably, and it has not killed more than, according to Israel, 200 Hezbollah operatives, because it's saying it's not going to escalate more. And I think that's what the United States is going to try to achieve here. It's going to try to say, we are going to attack these militias, for example, but the United States is going to try, at least, to not attack specifically Iranian soldiers. It may attack Iranian advisors, Iranian Revolutionary Guards, but it's not going to attack the Iranian army, because it wants to just say the balance of power is going to change. We're going to show deterrence, but we're going to do that still within these sort of rules of the game of not launching a war between Iran and the United States. What happened with the attack that killed the American service people is that militia, the Islamic brigades in Iraq, broke the rules of the game, so to speak. There's been over 60 attacks against different U.S. targets, but no service people were killed. All of a sudden they were killed, so now the United States is signaling, okay, we'll take it up one level, but they're only taking it up one level, so to speak. They're not taking it up to an all-out invasion of Yemen or something like that.
Right, Mr. Burstein, but Washington has clearly said that they intend to continue striking Iran-backed groups. However, White House has not denied striking Iran. Do you see that happening as well, considering, like I mentioned, that the U.S. has clearly said that it will continue to strike further regarding in its own choosing?
I think it will continue to strike further, but it's probably going to look to not escalate beyond these levels of strikes. And again, I don't mean to belittle human life, but when the United States carries out, in Yemen, 36 raids launching in Iraq and Iran and Syria, over 125 missiles, and killing, quote unquote, only 20 people, even though they launched 125 missiles, that's them trying to say we're not launching an all-out war. So similarly, I don't think they're going to attack Iran, even though the rhetoric is, if need be, they will. I don't think that they're going to. They don't want to take it to the next level of an all-out war breaking out.
Right. Also, let's also talk about U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's West Asia tour. This is his 5th since the start of the war. between Israel and Hamas. Do you think that the hostage deal will see the light of the day, considering how the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has clearly said that the hostage release deal is elusive at the moment?
It's elusive at the moment because of the internal politics of both sides, both Israel and Hamas. In Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu is really backed into a right-wing corner by his very, very right-wing coalition. So he has ministers who are saying they're not going to accept any pause in the fighting, and as far as they're concerned, they just need to continue bombing Hamas. In turn, Hamas is also split between the internal leadership in the Gaza Strip, Yahya Sinwar, and the external leadership, Ismail Haniyeh, who both disagree. So both sides right now are caught a little bit in their own internal politics, and that's really stopping negotiations until there was a breakthrough with Israel, and Israel was able to give a yes answer to the deal in Paris, and that took a very long time. Now, Hamas, so far every night, is saying they're going to give an answer in a few hours. They're going to give an answer in a few hours, but they're still not able to come up with an answer. Once they do, it's then going to go back to Israel. It's probably, unfortunately, going to take another at least several weeks for things to develop before both sides can come to something that they can convince their internal politics, Hamas on the one side and Israel on the other, that it's okay to go to this deal. I think Blinken is going to try to make it go faster. Maybe it will. But if we leave it, if things go the way they have been going in the last several weeks, we're still looking at, like the spokesperson in the United States said, we're still looking at a fairly long time, unfortunately.
Right, Mr. Bushteen. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on WION. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Have a good day.